Hello, Facebook. Hi, YouTube. It's good to be with you guys today. It's Tawana with Destiny Education, and I'm so glad you can join us for our Tactical Tuesdays. This is the day when we do a live stream and discuss the hypothetical situation that posted on Monday. And so yesterday's hypothetical was you're in a restaurant and you get the wrong order. Do you send it back? Do you eat it, or do you do something else? And so I've been looking forward to this one because I actually have, and I'm sure many of you have, so many experiences with restaurants and kind of how to deal with things within that restaurant setting. And so today's conversation should be a lot of fun. Don't forget to leave your comments or pop your comments along the way because we can respond to them while we're having this conversation. You can join in anytime you want to. And let's get started, shall we? We won't be here with you long, but it should be a lot of fun. So here's the first thing I want you to know about hypothetical situations. For those of you who are unfamiliar, a hypothetical situation is a possible situation that could arise in a given scenario and evaluating the ways in which you would handle that. The normal reason that we have these is I used to do it with my family, my younger kids all the time, because as they're growing up, I want them to have already developed the thought processes necessary to really think things through. So that when they end up in hard situations, if I'm not there to save the day, they already know how to think about it. Well, in this day and age, we have a lot of adults who don't know how to think about challenging situations and how to process their way through it. And so instead of just coming and doing a lesson on it, we decided, hey, why don't we, I'm sorry, you'll have to forgive me, my makeup is killing me again today. We decided, hey, why don't we come up with something that people might actually enjoy and that might be fun for them to participate in instead of just doing a lesson. And I kind of like it better that way. So I want to talk to you about restaurants because there are two types of experiences you're going to have at a restaurant. You're either going to have a wonderful experience or you're going to have a challenging experience. And you can call wonderful good, great, whatever you want to call it, you can call it. But a challenging experience is going to be difficult, bad, whatever words you choose to utilize, it's going to be one or the other. Now, within that, there's going to be levels of experience. So let me tell you about this one experience that I witnessed. There was a family at a table. This was at an Olive Garden in front of us. And the woman had placed an order. She had ordered chicken Alfredo. And the reason I remembered that is because it was the same thing I was ordering. And I said, oh, listen, they eat the same exact thing, the same exact meal, the same exact way that I do. Well, when their food came to the table, the waiter brought her fettuccine Alfredo. She didn't ask for fettuccine Alfredo. And so she said to him, oh, I'm sorry. No. I asked for chicken Alfredo. And he said, no, you didn't. You asked for fettuccine Alfredo. I know what you ordered. Okay. I don't know about you, but that's not really the way that you deal with it. And so here was this situation now where she has to deal with this man. So because of the way that he spoke to her, she said, you know what? I know that it's not what I ordered, and I need your manager. And he said, no, you don't need my manager. You can talk to me. I can deal with whatever, but I'm not going to get you something different because this is what you asked for. She said, this is the last time I'm going to ask you. Get me your manager. So this guy kept digging himself into this grave that he didn't need to be in, but he was doing it. And so the manager came, and this was a woman who clearly spent a lot of time, or a family who clearly spent a lot of time at this restaurant. because not only did the manager know her by name, she knew the manager by name. And as a result of that, the manager came over, she explained the situation. She said, listen, I'm not interested in fighting. I don't want anything done. All I want is chicken Alfredo, but I do not want him to be my waiter anymore. And so I need a new waiter. And so another waiter was brought in. The woman got what she ordered. She didn't ask for a discount. She was happy to pay whatever the rate was. She wasn't trying to get anything, just the menu corrected. So the real question is, what could she, if anything, have done differently? Honestly, in that case, the woman handled it well. She never lost her temper. She was never disrespectful to the waiter, despite the fact that the waiter was consistently disrespectful to her. When the new waiter or waitress came along, she treated them just the same, as well as she did the first one. The second waiter was a little more edgy, but the waiter wasn't edgy because she had to deal with that table. She was edgy because she had bore witness to the way that that man had dealt with her. And it was funny because as the family in front of us was enjoying their meal, I was watching the bartender as the guy went over to her and explained to her why he was right. And she said, it doesn't matter that you think you were right. What matters is that there was a simple problem that never needed to escalate, and you escalated it. And it was an amazing experience. It was an amazing way to see that happen. Like, that was one of those perfectly bad situations that ended up being a wonderful situation. Like, that rarely happens, right? But it was fun. And so when I come to you with this question, I want to bring you something else. You see, a lot of times when it comes time to dealing with things in restaurants, people want to send their food back. This is a different day and age than what it used to be. And while most wait staff are absolutely dynamic, and I don't know anybody who will complain about their waiter or waitress, there are some that leave a great deal to be desired. And so what we would caution is that when you are in a situation where you're in a restaurant and there's some kind of tension unwarranted between you and the waiter, the wiser thing to do, instead of fighting with the waiter, is just to get up and remove your business. You see, if enough people get up from the table and walk out, managers will begin to notice. And they'll begin to notice who the table is that's walking out. You can only tell the same excuse so many times to the right manager. To the wrong manager, it's always going to be everybody else's fault. But to the right manager, they're going to sit back and say, something's wrong with this waiter. And eventually they'll deal with it. Now, whether those clients come back or not will depend on the relationship they had before they first entered that particular establishment. There are days when I go into restaurants that I like or that I frequent, and I have bad days. It doesn't stop me from going because my history with that restaurant is longer than my experience with that one individual. That one individual will be away and not someone I have to deal with long before I have to stop being a customer. Does that make sense? So the longevity that you have with an establishment is important in how you decide to deal with a specific situation. Next, I want to bring you one more scenario. This was actually my scenario. I went into a restaurant once. It was in California. And I'm not going to say the name of the restaurant, but it was one of the big chain restaurants. And there was a dish that I wanted, but the dish had nuts. No, nuts were optional on the dish. And so I said, hey, I need to order this. Please make sure they don't have the nuts on it. And the waitress said, do you want me to put them to the side? And I said, no, keep them completely away from the dish. And she said, okay. When I got the dish, they had done a layer of nuts, and I want to say it was walnuts at the bottom of the dish, and then covered it with all the food. The funny thing was, in this one particular instance, I happened to stir my food first. And it was the oddest thing because it wasn't the normal way that I did things, right? Come to find out, there's these nuts. I gave the waitress back the plate and I said, okay, here you go. This has nuts in it and I'm good. I don't need anything else. And that was the end. And she goes, well, you told me you wanted them at the bottom. And I said, okay, that's fine. You see, at that point, there are certain things I don't have to tell you. I don't have to tell you if I have an allergy to nuts. I've already asked you to remove the nuts. I already know, as someone who may or may not have an allergy, how to deal with that allergy because I'm not a child, right? So I've had experiences with it over and over again. This particular woman wanted to keep fighting. I said, hi, all I need you to do is just take the plate. I'm not interested in anything else. Thank you. And so the person I was dining with became enraged at what was happening. And he said, you know what? I don't appreciate the fact that she has now told you 3 times just to take it away, and you want to sit here and argue. Give us whatever bill we have, and we're out of here. He left his food on the table. The food that I had ordered was left on the table, and we left. We ended up paying for it, and that was the end. And so we went on with our life. We went on with the day. We laughed about it for about 30, 40 minutes. And then another day, months later, came, and we went back in. Interestingly enough, the manager of that restaurant saw us and said, I remember you. Let me put you at a table. And he sat us over at a table and he said, hey, last time you were here, you got up and left and neither of your plates had been eaten. What happened? And we had explained to him what went wrong. And he said, you know what? Because you went through that and because you came back, I'm covering your meal today. It was ironic because we didn't go, again, longevity. We had been customers at that restaurant longer than we had had that experience. And so we ended up getting a free meal that day. Come to find out, the waitress we had worked with had done that to multiple people or something along those lines. She would play with their food. So when it comes to going to public places and they're dealing with things that you are going to consume, you have to start looking at things a little differently. People now are very sensitive unnecessarily about many things. Things that happen are always their fault. Bad food is bad food. It doesn't matter who did it. Just fix the problem. And if they're not going to fix it, most times they don't want to fix it. They don't want to incur the cost. They just want you to eat your food, eat your food or throw it away, but don't bother them with it. If they do something wrong, they don't want to hear about it. Now, we spent a lot of time focused on what not to, or how to avoid those bad situations, or what to do differently. In the case of that woman putting the nuts on my plate, there was really no other option than to get up because it was completely a problem. Like, you deliberately did this. I see you deliberately did this. I know you deliberately did this. And the reason that I knew is because I did have an allergy to nuts. So there wasn't any way that I was going to have nuts on my food. You following me? But how do you handle when you have the great situations? When you have waiters and waitresses who are just phenomenal? Do you just tip them higher? That's only one thing that you do. The other thing that you do is you take the time out of your day to write a letter to the establishment, explaining step by step what they did in their service that created such a memorable experience. Now, I want you to be mindful of this because there was one time that a client of mine was sharing with me that they had gone to this coffee shop and they called the manager to tell him just how friendly the people were who worked and that they were really appreciative. And the manager accused them of receiving free things from the people who worked there. And the ironic thing is that they didn't get anything free from these people. Like, they paid obscene amounts of money every single time they went to this establishment. And so you have to be careful how you outline this. What is it that made the service great? They were prompt. They asked all the right questions. So for example, if you go to Olive Garden has a very distinct system. The first thing they do when they come to the table is they offer you a wine. You can choose to taste it, choose not to. So that's one thing you want to mention. Number two, they said, would you like soup, salad, or breadsticks? They give you the chance to answer, blah, 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 blah. They bring you a portion of that, or they bring you your breadsticks. Great. List that out. This is what they did. Then they came back within X amount of time, took our order. The whole meal moved expeditiously. It moved this way, and this way. By doing that, you add a kudos, an extra bonus to their employee file. It helps them at raise time. It helps them whenever they are getting ready to embark on something new within that restaurant. Oftentimes, we won't take time out of our life to do that. But I want you to start doing that, because when you say thank you to people and you do it in that way, the next time you go back, they are so excited to work with you. They trip over the tables to work with you, because they just appreciate how you paid attention. So many of us spend time ignoring what people are going through, ignoring our servers. We don't even know what they look like. But know who the person is that you're working with. Understand who they are. Take time to say hello. Those are all character traits. They demonstrate qualities of integrity in you when you take time out of your way to say hi to someone or acknowledge someone that you don't necessarily have to acknowledge. So that's how we handle that hypothetical situation, and how we deal with showing our appreciation for our waiters, and how we deal with determining whether or not a situation in a restaurant is good or bad. Now, finally, as we're walking out of the door, what you and I just discussed today, it applies to areas across the board. It's not just what happens in a restaurant. It's what happens anywhere you go. Take that information with you today. Change not only your life, but the life of someone else. I'll see you next week.